I want to talk about something that a lot of people just refuse to acknowledge. And it will be triggering for people who've escaped domestic violence, and also for people who imagine how they would react if they were in domestic violence. So just be aware that it could cause some emotion. It's the fact that many people who are leaving domestic violence situations are actually worse off in nearly every way. And that can last for months or even years after they've left the abuser. Let me explain. When I was with my ex-husband, the one I talk about a lot on here, I had enough money that I could go through the grocery store without having to keep a running tally of how much we were spending. Like, we weren't rich, not making six figures or anything, but I had enough money that I didn't have to keep a running tally of the groceries. Compare that to now, where yes, I'm emotionally better, I'm in a better, spiritual and psychological place, and I'm actually starting to get a handle on what is going physically wrong with me. But I'm almost entirely dependent on food banks for the vast majority of our food. And at the end of every month, I'm generally feeling some kind of anxiety about whether or not I'm going to be able to afford the gas that it will take to go and pick my child up from his father's on the weekends. Now let's talk about support system. I had a great church body where I was. They're amazing and supportive and wonderful. And I had at least 2 genuine, beautiful friends that I managed to cultivate in spite of the fact that he tried to cut me off of them for 8 years. And I now live 78 miles from any of them. And then there are all the people who sided with him, who I thought cared about me, who I care about very deeply, who still sided with him. And so they're not, I care about them very deeply, and they're not part of my life anymore. His 3 kids especially really hurt, because I was starting to get to know 2 of them really well and was hopeful that the 3rd one would start coming around, at least because of his brother. And now I don't get to see them. So my support system right now consists of a lot of friends who live in places far away from me. Like friends from years past and friends whatever. And the people who work at the domestic violence place here. And I'm starting to make friends at the school here, and with a couple, and rekindle a friendship with a couple of people I used to know. But I lost an entire church body of really wonderful people. I mean, I guess there might have been 1 or 2 people in that congregation who weren't wonderful, but when I came here and tried to get involved in the church here, they don't want me. They don't want me, and I think it's because I'm disabled, but they just don't make you feel welcome. So leaving him, I lost my support system. Like all my physical supports anyway. I still get plenty of emotional support from all my friends who really do love me, but they don't live anywhere near me. So I couldn't just drop my son off with one of them when in an emergency. I have no one to leave my son with if I have an emergency. No one who doesn't live at least an hour's drive away. And then there's all the piddly little things, right? The things that don't actually matter in the scheme of things, but they make life more irritating. For instance, I've always kept this sort of mental tally of the items that I own, and there's a lot of those little things that make life a little easier in the kitchen that I own. I owned. And I have to keep reminding myself that actually my ex-husband owns them now. Because in the divorce, they were not important enough to want to get from. And then there's things like, there's asparagus that I started from seed 6 years ago, growing in his garden right now. We're getting mowed over. I don't know what he's doing with it, but I started it from seed, and the last time I checked, it was still there. And I'm never going to get to eat it. There was enough counter space in that kitchen that I was able to have all of the appliances that I needed the most often just sitting on the counter. Just sitting on the counter. And so I could use them whenever I wanted to. And there was that really awesome thing that my father-in-law made me that I could that was like on a winch, and I could put all my pots and pans on there instead of having them take up cupboard space. It was really awesome, and I someday want to get one again. And I'm most of the way past being frustrated by it, but the reason we got that house was because I wanted a house. And the reason we got that house instead of another smaller one is because I wanted to make sure that we had enough bedrooms that he could have his 3 kids come visit whenever they wanted to. He had no interest in that. He just wanted us to get a 1-bedroom or maybe a 2-bedroom so that we could have our own kids. What I'm saying is that at least for the first few months after I left, my life was made harder in almost every possible way, except for the fact that I haven't screamed at anyone in 2 years. If I had met that man when I was 20 and new to the world, I don't know if I would have been brave enough to leave him. The only reason why I felt I could leave him is because I've already been homeless before. That wasn't my first time being homeless, so I already knew that I could cope and how I could cope. So I already knew that I could be in that kind of situation and make it out and keep myself safe. I was less sure about being able to keep my son safe, but the domestic violence shelters in the area really, really helped with that because they were amazing. They were not at all what I picture when I think of the homeless shelters I've been in before. But how many people are in those situations who don't know that? What I'm saying is that a lot of people who don't leave domestic violence situations are doing it because they are very, very aware of everything else that they will lose when they leave. Or in some cases, they become aware after they leave, and that's why they go back. And they have to reach a point where they realize that what they gain in safety from that person is worth more than all of the things that they're going to lose when they leave. And I gotta say that all this hate for single parents, especially single moms, really doesn't help because that's exactly what you are when you leave the man who's putting you and your children in physical danger. Yeah, I guess I'm just really tired of hearing everybody blame the woman for staying, and then if she leaves and they do have a shit life because of all of the things that she lost by leaving, then it's also her fault because she should never have left. Have you guys ever realized that? As a single mom, I'm going to get blamed for any problems that my son has, especially since I'm a poor single mom who's disabled. But if I had stayed and then things had happened to my son and he'd gotten hurt, I would have been blamed for that. If you stayed this long, I'm really glad for that, and I thank you, and I hope that I've given you some food for thought. I know that if I ever get enough money to do it, I fully intend to set up more supports for single parents of all kinds. Because if we had that, then a lot of these situations would be ended.